In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to draw sunflowers using watercolor. The materials you'll be using are watercolor paints, watercolor paper 140 pounds, paintbrush round tip, water, and a paint tray. I'm going to begin by drawing two round centers for my sunflowers. I'm going to put one a little bit below to make it more interesting. Next, I'm going to take my round tip paintbrush and I'm going to dip it in one of my colors that I've already prepared. I prepared several different colors of yellows, and I'm going to go ahead and touch it slightly and then push my paintbrush down and then lift up again so I can create a thicker area in the middle. I'm going to leave some space between my petals, so when I want to add other petals of different shades, I have plenty of room to do so. Once you're done creating your petals with your first color, you may want to go back and add some touch-ups. It really is up to you. You could also leave it the way it is. I sometimes go back and add a little bit more color to some, but I will leave others alone. Now start with your second sunflower. This will give time for the first one to dry while you work on your second one. Do the same as you did in the first one. Start adding some petals with your first color, leaving space in between. You will need to draw some of the petals off the paper. Once you have finished your second sunflower, your first one should be dry enough. Begin by starting with a second color. I usually take the yellow and I add a little bit of orange or brown to it to get a little bit of a difference from the first yellow. You don't want a big difference, you just want a slight tone difference. So add a little orange or a little brown and experiment with it and make a few different ones, and then you'll be ready to start again. I sometimes even add a little bit of green to my yellow, or add a little green and maybe a little orange, or a little green and maybe a little brown. But you only want to add a little bit of a slight color to just give it a slightly different tone, but not to differentiate too much. Allow some of the petals to overlap. Put some next to each other, but definitely overlap some of them. Try not to make all your petals exactly the same. Try to make some a little bit smaller and maybe some a little bit larger, and maybe give some a little bit of a twist. In nature, they would look like that. Be sure to use some of the different colors on your petals that you have made. Once you have finished adding enough petals on your first sunflower, begin on your second sunflower. Now that I'm finished with my second sunflower, I'm going to return to my first sunflower. My first sunflower should be dry enough for me to add a little bit more details. I've created a color that's more orange than yellow, and I'm going to add some details to my petals or create new petals with that orange color. Do the same thing on the second sunflower, but be sure it's dry. This technique of adding another layer is called glazing. When you have finished adding all the petals to your sunflowers, we're now going to start with the center. With the center, we're going to layer different colors and we're going to leave some space of white in between. Before you begin, you want to create a tray of different colors for your center. Start with some light browns, maybe some brown greenish colors, maybe some orangey browns, but keep them very light tone. Do not make them dark. You want to start with a light taupe or tan color. We always begin with the light color, and as we layer, we go from light to dark. After you've added your first color, go ahead and add the second and third colors, but always try to leave a little white in your center. You can add the colors while they're wet so they blend into each other, but you also want to add some of the colors after the other color was dry. Once I finish adding those colors, I'm going to get a slightly darker color and I'm going to tap around the edges. And some of that dark color, I'm also going to go towards the center. I'm doing this to create some depth in my center. Once that is dry, darken your color even more and go ahead and slightly tap little tiny dots around the edges and in your center. You might want to emphasize one side of the sunflower a little bit more than the other side. Once you have finished creating the brown, go ahead and make a dark green color and start adding that into your center. But you want to spread it out and you don't want it exactly evenly spread out. You want to emphasize one area a little bit more than the other area, but you do want to put it in a very randomly. Take your white watercolor paint and a tiny tip brush and start adding white little tiny dots to the center of your sunflower. Now I want to begin adding details to my petals. I'm going to take my yellow tones and I'm going to start adding little veins inside the petals and emphasize some of the edges of the petals. Some of the lines you want to blend them in so they're not so harsh on the petals. It has to be very subtle. I also like to emphasize where the petal meets the center of the sunflower to slightly darken in the color, but it has to be very subtle. Also, take a moment and go back and go ahead and add a little more details, maybe a little bit of a darker color to the center of your sunflower. Once you finish adding all the details, it's time to add the greenery. Before we begin, create in your tray different tones of green. I'm going to begin by adding my stem. After I added my stem, I'm going to lift some of the green off the stem. Now I'm going to add one of the leaves. The best way to do this is to look at leaves of sunflowers so you have an idea what they may look like. And then I begin adding my leaf. They're usually a little bit on the wide side, so I like to make them a little bit wide. Go ahead and add one tone of green. And I'm going to do exactly what I did previously on the stem. I'm going to go ahead and lift up some of the green from the leaf. Once I lifted up some of that green from the leaf, I'm going to add now a brighter green to the leaf. In the area where the petals overlap over the leaf, I'm going to create a little bit of a darker area there to create a shadow. Now I'm going to begin by adding a second leaf to my sunflower. Once I've painted my second leaf, I'm going to go ahead and lift some of the green off the leaf as well. Once I do this, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of the edge to the leaf because they are a little bit edgy, and also add some of the veins that belong on the leaf. And I'll do the same on my first leaf. Now I'm going to add a leaf to my second sunflower. And don't worry if it overlaps your first sunflower or it goes off the edge of the paper. On this leaf, I'm going to also add some different tones of green, and I will be lifting up some of the color as well. Then I'm going to go ahead and add the edge to the leaf and some of the veins. Then go back and go ahead and add a little more details to your other leaves as well. The idea is to try to get it more to look a little more three-dimensional and to pop out a little bit. Add some darker colors and add some lighter colors, add some brighter colors. Play with the color somewhat and give it a little more details. When you finish doing this, go ahead and get a thin round tip brush and add a little more details, tiny little thinner details. And also add some lightness to your leaves and stem as well. It will brighten it up and make it stand out a little bit more. Finally, what I like to do is go back into my center of my sunflower and add a little more detail. And I like to use a little more green to make it look more natural. If you look at a sunflower, they do have a lot of different colors inside, but they also have a lot of green. So go ahead and take your green and add little tiny dots of green in certain areas. Don't necessarily have to spread it out, but concentrate it in different areas. If you like this video, please give it a like down below and subscribe to see more video demonstrations by Art Connection.